Prologue episode of the Scottish CEO Show is my amazing life coach, friend, international dancer who has danced for Elton John, One Direction, Little Mix, but now, most importantly, Chloe, you have decided to dedicate your life to helping others by empowering them through a journey of self-development. Welcome.
Thank you.
How does it feel?
You know when like big people get the intros and they're like, whoa, I feel like that's my first intro. I'm like, okay.
You're a big deal.
I'm in the room.
You're in the room. She's arrived and she's ready to go.
Yes.
So, Chloe, let's tell everyone that is listening, that is watching, let's tell them a little bit about you. Let's tell them the real Chloe Ferns. Let's tell them Chloe Ferns, then let's tell them now the Chloe that we know, the Chloe Soul Hub and Chloe. Let's tell everyone. Give us a summary of who you are and why you're sat here today.
My name is Chloe. I grew up in a place called Govan.
Oh, stunning. Nice and sunny there, isn't it?
Sunny Govan.
Is that right beside the beach?
So, like, for most people coming from Scotland, we've all had a pretty tough time. I'm not saying everyone, but the majority of people, we have had a rough ride. And I feel like for me, what that done was really initiate, like, a different path.
Do you think it gives you... I always say, right, like, there's no hiding in me that I always say, I'm like, I'm for the Bronx, you're for the Bronx, right?
Yes.
The Bronx of Glasgow.
Yes.
But what do you think that gives you? Because that's something that I find so interesting.
And honestly, I'm really digging into this because it is so, it's been really taught that when you come from nothing, when you come from a council estate, when you've been through this trauma, that your destiny is one way. And really now, and why I'm so passionate about the work that I do is coming from that is what makes you.
But I also think coming from that is like, what have you got to lose, right?
What have you
is
got
what
to
I
lose?
always say to people. I'm like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to go up to the job centre, you're going to go up to the housing and you're going to say, I've fucked it, going to give me a house in the scheme. Whereas if you give it your all and you work like fuck, then great things will happen.
And see just in life and in the work that I do now, like these things that happen to us, these trials and tribulations and trauma that we go through, if you are willing to go to the depths of that, and it took me a long time and it's still it's a lifelong process, right? But when you're willing to go to these depths of yourself and bring and surrender and be vulnerable, and you know, like I always say it, but own your story. There's a freedom that comes, there's success that comes, there's new opportunity, there's new
do you
insights.
not think, right, by like owning your story, right, is like, I always say this, I'm an open book, you're an open book, right? Yep. Ask me what you want about me and I will tell you, because I don't have anything to hide, right? I'm like, what you see is what you get. Yep. The name of Lord Sugar's book, might I add. But if you look at someone like Maya Jama, right? Yep. Do you know this her story?
No, really.
So I was actually just talking about this yesterday. So Maya Jama's parents, her dad specifically, had basically been brought up through the prison system. Okay. And every single time that girl gets a job, it gets trailed back in and trailed back in. Why do you think? But then you look at her and you think, do you think Maya Jama gives one monkey? No, because she's the Love Island host. She's sitting back on, great. You know, the Daily Record of Birmingham can write about her, but she's out there, she's doing her thing, she's not interested. So talk about that.
And I also feel with that as well, like I actually was thinking about this the other day, I developed that from young. So my dad specifically was quite a heavy drug addict, so I had that thing of going to school like, your dad's a junkie. Like I dealt with that very young, and it almost so gratefully did. I from very young did not identify with like the people that I was not identify, but my story was not a reflection of theirs, right? So I was my own person, and I thought, like, I don't need to be tied into that. Like, I'm my own person. And I feel like from the age of 3, 4, like dance was always
your escape.
My escape,
which probably leads us on to like, tell me about how you went from, you know, a girl from Govan to being in Elton John's music videos to touring the world with One Direction, because that's quite a jump. Tell us about that.
It was a long rough,
it was a hustle.
It was a lot of mega buses. It was a lot. I mean, on that mega bus, I had shoes fall on my head, I had alcoholics fall on top of me, and I mean, I had a lot. would be getting in fights. Like, it was.
But what did that teach you?
It taught me that, like, if I want to get something, I didn't. You know what? It wasn't even hard at the time. Now I look back to some of the experiences I've had, or some of the positions I've been in, and dangerous as well.
I think that's so true. And you think that, like, you as a dancer would have probably been putting your 16, 17-year-old self on a megabus with people you don't know, but also walking about the streets of London before an audition,
terrified.
and just pure brass necking it, that wouldn't have scared you then?
No. And I would just be like, I wouldn't even explain where I was going. I'd be like, I'll be back tomorrow. And I'd get to Buchanan. I don't even know how I got there. Buchanan bus station, do that megabus, get off at Victoria, be like, whoa, baby wipe in the toilet. There was always, I've just been speaking to my husband about this, but there was always a woman every time who was like a witch, right? She was on some freaky vibe, and she'd be like in the mirror, and she was like, and obviously I've just come from Govan, like, I've been drinking cider in the park, and I'm like, what is this place? Like, it's so overwhelming. I'd get clean, I'd go to the audition, I'd literally get told no within milliseconds, and then I'd be back in the megabus on the same day.
But then you think, like, a lot of people probably don't think about that as, like, right, people see you as this hugely successful dancer, which you are, and you worked hard for, but, like, let's talk about those earlier days, right? The days where you would go in, and I know this from being in the industry, where you go, I remember going in once, I went all the way down to Manchester, it was for a Vauxhall advert, I got all the way down, and out my mouth, and she went, excuse me, are you Scottish? And I went, yeah. And she went, yeah, why are you here? And I went, just my agent sent me down, and she went, yeah, this isn't for a Scot. Thank you very much. And I was like, I've actually not even got to give you my script. I've not even got to tell you where I'm from yet. And there was me straight back up the road, and I'm like, how many times would the likes of a Brian Friedman have said to you,
oh my god,
no?
I literally, he pulled me out of a line one time, right? He literally, I was like, when I was at college, I had a lot of energy. I mean, I had that Govan energy, which was my superpower, and that's what I mean, this stuff is your superpower.
But I think that's so important to say, is like, that coming from that childhood of like that is what you've got that drive, you've got that energy, which probably those that maybe don't come from those circumstances, they're actually normally really insecure, whereas someone like me and someone like you was a bit gallus, thought, you know what, I'll go down there, I'll show Brian Friedman what we can do.
I was actually, now on reflection, I was really insecure, right?
But you used that to, like,
I never knew it at the time, but now in reflection, but when I'd get in these environments, it was honestly like, this is all I ever wanted. So I would do some crazy. I would backflip off tables, I would go up to the panel. One time I actually, on X Factor, like, not choreographed or not told, I went up to Simon Cowell and like kissed his cheek, right, in the middle of a number, because he was like, and I thought, this is so funny. And then the
that's just was like, you giving it like, I'm looking for a bit more airtime.
And you know what, it wasn't even like, it was never an intention like, oh my god, look at me. I would just get so overwhelmed by the environment that I would go wild. But one time, basically, in a Brian Friedman audition, it was just, I was so nervous still. And I had this big ponytail, and I was at the back of the room holding the ponytail, swinging them just to be seen, right? And then he did the line up, and he pulled me out, and he was like, can you come back and like just like pull your hair out and like change your makeup and change your outfit and just come back? And I was like, oh me? God, okay. And then came back, and actually, to be honest, he really made my career. Like, I'm really? So grateful.
That's good.
I got fired from a lot of jobs.
Chloe, also. I know this more than anyone, right? But like, I think it's important to talk about as we sit here on a business-driven podcast, right? So many people that I speak to, so many people in business, as I've said it once and I'll say it again, but you mess up more than you make up, right? And that's so true. And it's important to talk about that. I hate when people say to me, oh my God, you're doing so well. And I'm like, if you knew yesterday that I was having 3 square goals with a joiner, fighting in the bank over the bank cards no coming, I'm like, let's get real here. Let's talk about the real world. So let's talk about, how we went from that evolvement of you evolving into what I know as commercial Chloe, who would do the backflips on the telly, who would be on Britain's Got Talent, but ultimately how you then decided to leave a life that you had built as a world-renowned known dancer to just go, you know what, that's actually not for me anymore.
You know what? It's like I've went in a full circle, but the moment happened when, so I was maybe 28. Now I'm flying around the world. I'm doing all these amazing
She's
jobs.
on private jets, might we add? She's on private.
I'm living my life.
You're living it.
And it wasn't that I was unhappy, but there was this like part of me, right, that was this unhealed part that was, you know, like I say it now, it's like your intuition's like it was like ready to deal with this stuff. And basically as a child I was sexually abused. So when I'm 28 and I'm living my life and I'm in London, I've got amazing friends, I've got like an amazing
nice
boyfriend,
life.
I'm good, but there was this like this part of me that was like ready, and that was obviously like suppressing that my full life that I'd been abused.
Do you think that was just, it's taken you probably that life skills to actually then start to deal with that?
Because and that's why I'm so open and vulnerable, because actually when you start to own that, it just loses power. So at first it was this big massive event, and basically I went to court and I got justice, and you know, I really went the full way with it, because I had started doing the work, right? I had a few experiences where life didn't go my way, and it was quite heavy and dark things within my work life, my relationship. There's so many different things at one point in my life that came to a head, and that was the moment that I thought, like, I need to deal with this. And I went, obviously I got justice, and you know, then I started to be like, I want to help people overcome this. And when I did that, I started to realise that, wait, like, I'm not defined as one thing. I really love property, right? I honestly, like, I would genuinely, hand on my heart, not even have to really dog school, be like, I'm not feeling well, and watch Homes Under the Hammer
all day and all night.
Honestly, I was obsessed, right? My mum, at 14, my mum would go out and we had these bunk beds, and I sawed the bunk beds to make myself a double bed. Like, I would paint the room. Like, I honestly was.
But then I think that comes from that, like, do you not think, and it's a fun thing that I believe of, like, you don't need to have one job, right?
No.
I'm 10 jobs, Bob. I do more things in the week, right? And I love it. I'm all for it. This week, you know, I've been a radio presenter, I've been a drama teacher, I've been a business owner, I've been a bit of everything. The day at 5 o'clock, I'm going to do an audition for a TV drama.
And that's the thing, but all of the things, they are linked, right? They're your way of expressing yourself, they're your creativity. I think, like, the way that we've been taught for so many years, especially in business, it was like, do something for 10,000 hours and become the very best that you can. Now it's like we're passionate beings, right? Like, it might be a slight touch of ADHD. I definitely know there's a tamper of that.
The ADHD is ripping out of me and you.
Oh yes,
absolutely,
and I love it because it's such a gift, right? It's such a gift to be able to be so creative and passionate. But obviously, now and knowing that, it's like, how do you refine that? Then how do you work with it? Right, whereas before it was just like, whoa,
I'm here.
But it was that moment I started to educate myself. I really did. It was like YouTube. It was starting to learn how to meditate, do these different techniques and tools. I went to the jungle and did ayahuasca. I mean, I've tried it all.
You've done it all.
I've done it all.
And I think that's something that I want to emphasise here is, like, I feel like probably something that we both have in common is I feel I have 10 lives, and I know you feel the same, right? Because I'm like, I have Reese, who was the club manager, then I had Reese, who was the uni student, then I had Reese, who was this, and I'm like, see all the experiences, I think they make you who you are. And I'm like, 100%. I would encourage anyone and anybody that's listening to this, anyone that's in a job that they're unhappy about, is literally make the jump, find something else and challenge yourself, because I think where that excitement, where that new you, where that energy comes from is from doing something that's different. Like, you've been a dancer, you've flipped properties, you've made, you know, a fortune doing your properties, you've then had your problems with your properties that you're no shy and telling me that you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. You're now a mum, you now own a business, you're also a life coach. And I'm like, for me, you've had more lives than a cat, which I'm all about. I'm like, you know, I hate cats, so we won't be talking about them on this podcast. They freak me out, and anyone that is listening that loves cats, please don't tune in and please don't subscribe. But I'm kidding, no, I don't mean any harm to the cats. But listen, for me, you are 9 lives Chloe Ferns, the cat.
And I'm now like, oh my god, one thing on that as well, like, age has been, when I was younger, when I thought of someone at 30, I'm like, you're done. Like 30, when you...
As a dancer, though, that's in your head, because when you go to drama school or dance school, you're told, you hit 30, you give up.
And it's so crazy. And it's so detrimental to lots of people's mind. I've worked with clients that simple belief in when they're a certain age and if things haven't really figured out, and also being a woman and babies and in your 30s, right? There's all these different things that we have to meet, like these points of our life that we have to have ticked a box, and if you don't tick that box at that time, you've failed.
Yeah, you've done something wrong.
And what I'm like, 30, I'm 33. Yeah, 33.
I have to check there.
Have to
for the passport office.
Oh my god. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm just beginning. Like, what does 40 look like? What does 50 look like? I am so excited. Like, I know I will be doing something completely different.
Yeah, but then I think that's because you love life and you're grateful for it. You know, you don't live your life in fear, thinking like, oh, you know, I'm going to be 30 this year and I'm going to be that. And I think that, like, I always say something like, more life. Let's be grateful for another year. Let's be grateful for another life. And I think that probably brings me on to talk about, like, right, if we talk about more life and basically making the most of your life, how do you now, tell us what you do now with your clients as a life coach, business coach, everything that you do through your amazing business, The Soul Hub.
So the Soul Hub actually is a funny story, because after I had my little girl, I had just came back from London. It wasn't like I wasn't planning on coming back to Scotland. I was very much in an energy always of, like, I guess, running away. Not even an unintentional running away, but I hated Scotland. Like, I hated the mindset. I was very like...
Can we talk about the mindset in Scotland? Because I've said this, and it's something that's quite controversial in the press about me, right? And I've said it before. I've got it typed for it. But my mentality of what I was taught at school was this. You go to school, you get an apprenticeship, you look forward to a 2-week all-inclusive holiday in Marmaris every year. Yeah. And that was it, right? That's what I was brought up to believe. So automatically I'm thinking, right, when I'm at school, you know, you've got Mr. this and Mr. that, giving you that mentality. Whereas for me, the mentality that I would rather teach children and rather teach young people is, let's live in a world where things happen on a fucking big scale. I'm like, I want to be... Why can you be the next Tracy Beaker in CBBC? Why can you have your own show at the age of 10? Because I think that comes from, like, the education system that we're in is so unjust, in the sense where, like, you know, you must get an apprenticeship in the National Rail because that's a steady rob, and then you must go to Marmaris for 2 weeks in the summer because Jane next door's gone to Marmaris and she said it was brilliant. Whereas, like, that's no life.
And this isn't like on an individual level, right? This isn't like this is all of us. I'm actually speaking about me as a Scottish person, and I'm not like judging other people. I'm just understanding how I viewed the world, and the journey of that. And, you know, we're very judgmental to things that we don't know anything about. We love to, as a nation, people love to pull others down. I'm like, listen, I always think when you see a Scottish person on a show, I'm like, on yourself, yourself, right? Whereas that comes from probably a lot of hard work and a lot of like personal development, which is what you do with your clients. So talk about what you do. What do you do with a client? What tools can you give them? So I think the first and most important is, like, understanding your story and allowing them the space to be vulnerable and share their story in a safe environment. And then for me to I guess, unpack that and start to make sense of why they behave in the way they do. Why?
But almost unpack it in a safe way, because you don't want to be, you know, I've told this to you before, but I've been to more life coach, therapists, business coaches than what I have hot dinners.
Which is so important, by the way. We all need it.
I love it.
We all need it.
Who doesn't want to go and take an hour out your week to make sure that your head is actually all right?
This isn't always about just if you're not good, right? It's even like with the Soul Hub, it's not like, oh, this is the best ways to deal with your trauma and optimise your life. It's actually like, as a human being now, there's so much evidence. There's, like, you know, like biohacking. We are so, what we know is so limited. Not that now I know everything, but now my eyes are open to, well, we can really optimise this machine. So the only way to do that is by going to other people, for other people to have a different perspective. It's not that
it's not a judge. It's not a judging situation. No. You're basically working at, I always say, like, it's like a sounding board, right? And you need someone like, I always like, me and you, we'll come on to that in a minute about like how we kind of started working together, but like, you know, it's another opinion on your life. Why should you just make big life decisions on your own when you can pick up the phone?
When you're in it as well, you're not getting clarity on like, you're emotionally involved in your own situations. When someone from an external is looking in, they can just see it completely differently, and it's just help and guidance. And you know, like, even now, I'm like, I want to always have anybody successful has a coach.
Right, but everybody, like, listen, anybody that goes to football, anybody that plays tennis, anybody that is an actor, you have a coach. So why should we not have a coach in life?
The most important. And I feel like, again, it's just the language and the media and all these different things of...
it's a stigma
it's a
you're
stigma
that you are not well. So then that kind of brings me on to, like, your mission, and I'll be very forthcoming in saying this, is I believe that your mission now is to empower everybody else through your trauma, your story, but to empower them to believe in themselves, empower them to go, do you know what, give them that get up and go. And Chloe does that. If you don't already know, Chloe does that through cold water therapy. She sells her own Soul Hub packs, which you'll get a cold water tub, you'll get a journal, but also on top of that, you have the service of you, which I think a sounding board, a mentor, guidance is so important. But let's kind of jump a little bit and let's talk about how me and you started working together. Yeah. So, Chloe, I can still remember, I could probably tell you word for word what I messaged you. And I remember, for anyone that doesn't know, I've had many life coaches in life, and it's been bloody brilliant. I've had the Key, I've had Megan, I've had Christine, I've had a guy, Bill from Manchester. But ultimately, why I came to you is I thought, shit, she's actually pretty fucking normal. And I'm like, you know, you almost, and I did feel like when you go to, you know, when I used to go to someone from Manchester, they would look at me and they'd go, right, where's the problems? And I'm like, you know, we're all fucked, we're all tapped. And whereas, like, when I spoke to you, I thought, God, she's actually, like, very genuine, very heartfelt, and actually is just there to better people. And I think if there's one thing that I would say to anyone that is encouraging or that is thinking about getting in touch with you, it's like, there is no judgment when it comes to you. And I think that for me was the reason why I came to you. And, you know, as everyone, I'm pretty open, as I say, you know, everybody's got a story in life, but, like, listen, I think it's about how you counteract that to progress on in life. So
that
tell me how we...
means so much. Like, like a lot. Like, I'm like, oh my God.
But it's true. And I'm like, I'm not just saying that because we're sat here in a podcast across from each other, like, Chloe, me and you.
And I also know that, you know, and it's like,
it's real, it's genuine.
It's real, and that's the reason I actually went and studied to even become that, and, you know, like, took my life in a different path is because when I went to court for that abuse case, like, I went through the system and went to the rape crisis, and you know, like, in that moment I thought, I wish I never done any of this. I was so resentful. I was like a number on a list, and, you know, I just felt like I had just opened up my heart to these people.
And then they go, no worries, there you go.
Yeah, and I just was like lost. And then obviously after a couple of years of doing work, I thought, all right, that's it. It clicked. It was like, my mission and job is to be exactly what I needed in that moment. And that is what it is. Like, there's just no judgment. I just don't.
And I think that's important to say, is, like, I say this all the time, and, like, anyone that walks through my door at the theatre school is like, no matter what you are, who you are, right, listen, everybody's got a phone voice. And some people always say to me, like, you sound really different to what you do in the telly. And I'm like, I sound a wee bit different on the telly because I get told off every producer, I can't understand a fucking word you're saying. So some of my producers, some of your producers will say, and it's not a reflection on, like, they don't understand me, but equally, right, I speak 100 mile an hour, you speak 100 mile an hour.
Passion.
So if I am in a job or I'm in the running to join a brand new drama, they're going to go, Reece, just soften it.
Yeah.
So sometimes when you see me on the lovely Lord Sugar's Apprentice, I'm still me, I'm still who I am, but sometimes I'll naturally need to soften it because you're up against, like, no being understood. If I'm not understood in the edit, I ain't making the cut, right?
That is a trauma that I'm still...
You're still dealing with?
I'm still... When I moved to London and went to Urdang, like, I honestly, every conversation with fellow students, with teachers, anyone on the tube, like, anyone would just go, I would speak, and I was so rough and young and broke Chloe, and traumatised.
That comes from all of us that leave Glasgow and go to London, right? I still laugh at the first ever big agent I had. I'll never forget, I'll not name her name because she'll probably come to my door. She was a crackpot. But I remember when she went, could you just slow down? And I remember being like, I just want to be on Coronation Street and I just want to be on Emmerdale and blah, 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 blah. And she just was like, she must have thought, what's wrong with this wee guy? And I think it just comes from, like, age and going, just chill out.
And I used to, in auditions, I would go forward and then say my name, and they'd say, Louie, and I'm like, no, Chloe. They're like, Louie? I'm like, no, Chloe. And then I started, and it was like a funny thing in the industry. I'd like go forward and be, hello, my name's Chloe Ferns, and I trained at Erding Academy.
That was your stage voice?
Yeah,
and then they would give you the job.
And then everyone would be like laughing, because that's the only way I could get it. But now, even again in reflection, now I want to talk. I want to be a speaker. I was so traumatised around my voice, and I think that's just like hopefully an inspiring thing here, because I never ever thought that I would ever want to speak, right? Because speaking was such a traumatic event, and now all I want to do is talk.
But then, Chloe, as a human, right? If you were to ask me what my dream job would be, first of all, I'm choking for a shift in the A&E department at the Royal, right? Because I just find it dead fascinating. But other than that, I just love to talk. I'm like, if I could choose one job, like, you know, it's just to talk to real, genuine people. We do open days at the school, and I find myself talking to, you know, guy came in last week. He said more jobs than me. I was just like pure drawn to him, talking a lot of shite for hours. But what then comes on to us is like talking as a method of escape, talking as a method of therapy. So let's talk about me and you, right? So how did we first start doing sessions? What was your first opinion of me when I first came on that call?
I honestly, I loved it. You actually spoke of it. I was telling one of the girls yesterday who met you. I was like, he was coaching me, and I had to be like, stop coaching me, stop, I'm coaching you. And I remember, I really do remember it, because obviously you have always been, so since I met you anyway, like you've always been super successful for your age. Even now I'm just like, your age is honestly remarkable.
So for anyone that maybe doesn't know, I am 26, living in a 45-year-old man's body, because I feel like I've been here for 50 years.
I think it's really clear that you need to always say you're 26, because I feel like your energy and how you hold yourself and your persona does not give that away, and that's really inspiring. So I was so inspired by you, but then I knew...
there was work that needed to be done.
There was work that needed to be done, and it was that deeper work. It was the stuff that, I've dealt with that. I don't need to deal with that. And I remember...
That younger Reese, the wee dick, that'd be like, shut, no, I'm fine.
And I was like, no, I know. And I knew, and I was like, I know you're fine, and I know what that is, because I also feel the same.
It's like a self-defense.
But it was, I could see, and I remember when we started to do it, and then we would have the phone calls, and just so many things unfolded, and there was a lot of healing. I remember one specific, the way we'd walk around that Kelvin Grove Park. I remember walking through the gates. I remember us talking about the business, building it out.
But do you know, think, right, so we started working together about 3 years ago, right? And the reason why I came to you was because I felt like I'd been to business coaches, and I'm not saying like, you know, you need to put the work in as a student, right? And you need to go away and do the work. But I came to you because I firmly believed that my business was fine. I didn't need somebody to give me a helping hand. But I felt like for me, Reese Donnelly, as a human, I just needed to fucking sit back and go, what do you need to do for you for once? And I think that's one thing that was very, very important and very clear when I first met you, is we kept saying, it's personal. It's not about the business. Although we would talk about the business and make small goals, but I kept saying to you, like, I'm trapped in my own business, and now I sit here, I can laugh about it, right? But like, genuinely, I was caught in a way where I was so trapped and caught up in my own business that I couldn't breathe. And I felt suffocated in the sense where I was like, I was actually scared to take a day off, because I was so in fear of that it was going to go, or it was going to bust, or that somebody was going to take it away from me. And it actually took me a lot of like dealing with, and a lot of like emotional work to go.
So coming from where we come from, that we're not deserving.
I'm not deserving of owning a success. I'm not deserving of a day off, because you know, if I take a day off, her around the corner that's something a theatre school's going to take over, and I'm like, and it took me a lot of work to actually realise that, no, hold on a minute here. I've worked a lot on the business. I've given those kids my fucking life, and I would still would, right? I love my students. I love working with them, but it was getting to the point where I was like actually starting to hate myself. And I didn't like the person I was, because I was addicted to working. And I saw a TikTok the other day, and I was like, my addiction is this, this, and this. And I was like, I was addicted to working. And that's not a nice quality to have.
And also, it's like we identify, like, you know, like there's all these different parts of us, but I was just Chloe the dancer. And now, then even like Chloe now, the the coach and the healer and the person who wants to but that's one small aspect of all of these different parts of us, and when you don't start to get to know the parts, you don't even know they exist, for one.
But I think as well it's also important to add that, like, you know, you can have many strings to your bow, but the reason and what helped me so much with our kind of as a life coach is I just actually needed to sort my own life out and figure, hold on a minute here, I've given fucking years to this school, I love it, it's given me a life that I'm so thankful for, but I'm actually going to end up having a nervous breakdown if I don't take a day off. So me and Chloe worked quite intensely on like taking that day, taking that half day, but ultimately it then led me to the discovery that I actually didn't want to be as much involved in the school. Now I say this and I'm there every day, right? But I'm there at a choice, but and I wanted to work mentally, but I also wanted to work on me, the Rhys Donnelly who wanted to be an actor, who wanted to be on the telly, who wanted to be a presenter, and ultimately we sat here now 3 years later, right? And we did good. I'm like, listen, we've had
we've talked about all of this, right?
Like all of this that we're doing now,
you know, without being like, even like manifesting, it's like making things intentional. Like even our connection to ourselves, like spiritually, like I know that's still such a new.
But we are quite deep, right? So let's just think of that. When we say spiritually, like, I'm not saying that me and Chloe are sitting there praying to God or praying to Allah, right? But we are spiritually connected. So I believe in, you know, signs. I believe in the times. I believe in the moon. I believe in connections with that. But ultimately, that comes because of studying. Like we studied really deep.
Spirituality, it just means like forming a connection with yourself, a deeper connection with yourself, not needing, you know, like
validation.
Scotland, another perfect thing, we're so driven by materialism. It's like if you've got the Range Rover or the Rolex, then that means you're it, right? And when we're all come from nothing, it's like,
but I remember I'm going to say, like,
so
for anyone listening to that, it's like, when you get it, what does it make you feel? Nothing.
Right?
Like, so I always think, like, both of us sit here as people that have, like, you know, I used to be like, I'll work so I can buy a Range Rover. You get the Range Rover and I'm like, the best car I've ever had in my life. Do you remember that? I had this first car, it was terrible, but fuck me, I loved it. It got me from A to B, right? And I'm like, no, I actually love the feeling of driving, and it's like you're institutionalised to think that material things. I'm not saying we don't like nice things. But
then on the flip now, I'm thinking, like, also I'm very deep in this like spiritual path, and you know, like I'm only at the beginning, but but also that doesn't mean you can't have the luxuries. It's where is the intention coming from? Am I doing this because I want to be seen and for people to validate me because I have these things, or do I not need that validation? But actually, I want to like have a nice experience.
Things, you work hard.
So it's always the intention, right? But I feel like when we started to work and we started to dig deeper into like that younger race, knowing where these behaviours came from, knowing where these reactions as well.
And, you always used to say to me, I say this to everyone, Rhys, before he and me did the development, the work, I was a ticking time bomb, right? And at any given point, if I would have erupted, hell meant whoever I took it out on. And what you just say is like that healing process is like, I was so uptight and anxious, I was like a ticking time bomb, and at any given point,
most of all of us, and that's the thing, that's why starting to recognise and, you know, like not being scared to go to these parts of yourself, or just owning your story doesn't mean coming on a podcast and telling the world, right?
It means owning your story, writing it down,
thinking about it, starting to, like, if it makes you feel uncomfortable, like going to the places and understanding where that discomfort comes from.
One thing that me and you did that I thought was fantastic, and as I've said, you know, if I'm going to sit here and be an open book, I'm going to talk about something, but like I have zero relationship with my dad in life. Don't want a relationship with him. And do you know what, like old Rhys used to be very resentful. I don't wish anybody in life any harm. No one that I genuinely wish everyone in the world every success. I wish everyone happiness. But I basically kept going through this point where I'm like, why is this guy no understanding that I actually don't want to reply to your texts? So I'll never forget me and you had a session. I was like,
I remember we were arguing at one point. I was like, no, you will.
No, because I was like, listen, I was like, Rhys would have just been like, block and delete, right?
Yeah.
And I kept going back to like, I don't wish anyone any harm in life. I genuinely love people. I love the world, and I wish everyone every success. But I don't want a relationship with him. I've never have done, and I never want one. Yep. And I had to actually get over like why. I wrote down why, and I still believe those values. So me 10 years ago, me 5 years ago, would have probably drove to the house, started shouting and bawling, caused an absolute uproar, spoke about it for 5 days, and then would have shut up about it. But in this instance, you'll remember, I actually scheduled in a call.
Yeah.
So I was like, do you know what? I'm going to be very mature. I felt like I was booking a viewing for a house. I was like, hi, I would like to speak to you at this point, at this time, and this is what we're going to discuss, and you're going to listen to me. As your son that doesn't want a relationship with you, I'm going to tell you why I don't, and I want you to respect that. So I literally was so level-headed. I let him do the moaning, I let him do the greeting, I let him do the shouting, and I went, okay, thank you. And now I'm going to speak. So my view on it is this. I don't want a relationship with you. I don't wish you any harm in life. But ultimately, I just want you to know that, like, I'm not ignoring you. I don't want to have a relationship, and you need to respect my decision. And see, after that, it's like you feel like, do you know what? I'm like, there's no trauma. There's no aggro.
It doesn't always need this. This is what this journey is made. Like, you know, when you walk this path, it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows. It's so dark. It's so heavy.
Dark.
You have to have these. You know, when we say getting uncomfortable, that's the whole thing with the water. Like pushing yourself out your comfort zone. That means by having difficult conversations, setting boundaries. Like,
but in business, I think that then equips you by having a coach like you. Is okay. Me and you work together on a very personal level. You helped me deal with a lot where I was like, I want to remove this, I want to deal with this. But ultimately now in business, I don't have a problem with sitting down and saying to someone, you're not performing, you're underperforming, you're not hitting the key. I don't have a problem with that, because do you know what? I'm pretty confident in saying, like, I'm here to help you, but you take the piss, and I will be very forthcoming in saying, well, listen, I've put in these procedures. And I think there's one thing that I want to say if anyone's listening is, like, owning a business is a bit of a trial and error. As Amy Moore said, it's winging it. But ultimately it comes down to going, hold on a minute here, pick your battles wisely, and picking your battles in a way. So I want to move on to, let's just sum up at the start of the journey with me and you. Let's describe the Reese that came to you in 3 words.
The Reese that came to me was, I'd say, like, it really, like, energised.
I've always been
successful and very assertive.
I would say that one word I would have said was stubborn. I had a certain stubbornness to me that, like,
so nice.
Okay, that, like, I mean, yeah, you are being nice, because I would have said if I came to you, if 3 words I came to you, it was like, I know what I wanted, I was quite positive, but I still had a wee dick mentality when I was like, I want to be a wee dick and moan at everybody and shout at everybody, and I think that...
No, you won that. No.
I think that, like,
I feel like you might have been that in your other worlds, but, like, with me,
for you,
won all that.
Okay, so I think
I honestly do think I saw a lot of the real you.
Yeah, and I believe that.
Yeah.
So now that we sit here 3 years later, all the work that we done, let's just try and sum this up. What did we put out a plan to create?
Wow, we put out a plan to create building Reese's personal career back up, so that whatever that looked like, that just meant it could have been acting, playing other roles, it could have been presenting, it could have been potentially even other businesses, but just it was all about Reese
as the brand,
not Reese as a theatre school and being identified only with that. It was like you as a brand.
So Reese the brand. But what did we also work on? Me and you worked on something so special, I think. And for anyone that doesn't know this, at the start of lockdown I decided to take on a project that literally skinned me to the bone. And you know me, I'm all in or all out, right? So I was basically presented with a unit that was going to skin me to the bone and take every bank account I
feel like even when we were thinking about it, we weren't thinking skin you to that bone.
No, we had no clue of how. So, like, I think we originally went, like, so in short, I had basically took on a unit. Well, I was going to take on a unit to change the theatre school during lockdown, might I add. Neighbours open, but I'm already thinking, where am I going next?
This is great.
I'm thinking, this is great. You know, Nicky's probably going to give us a shout and we'll probably be out the house in 2 weeks and everything will be back to normal. Fast forward 2.5 years and my business still isn't open. I'm still in lockdown. But what I basically made the decision of, and I came to you, is I was like, in order for me to go big here, I need to come out of this lockdown and I need to go bang. Nobody else is getting a bit of this. And okay, there's other colleges, there's other theatre schools, but the college wasn't even an idea yet. And I said to you, I was like, I'm opening a college out of lockdown and I'm taking my business to the next level. I found a unit in the city centre, and in short, I basically had to fund and find £250,000 to open it and to launch it. And from someone of, like, my mentality back years ago, like a wee guy from a scheme, that normally would have scared me, but I don't know what I found in me. But do you remember I kept going, should I do it, should I not, should I do it? And now I'm like,
And we knew, like, the questions or that the fears and that
old person coming in,
that person like tainting your view, but I could see it, and I'm so glad it worked out, because if I ran you down that path and then but I knew, you know what, like, that's the thing, like, it's always going to work.
Yeah, but
like,
what's because you put your mind to it.
Yeah, so like for me in property, there was so many experiences and so much big numbers, like big high numbers, like
that would scare you in life.
Like auction properties needing to find 400 grand in 20 days,
but then,
and just being like,
Chloe, I'm going to say this, right? See now, like sometimes when I even say to my mum, I'll never forget, like a few days before opening the studio, I went, fuck, I've got a bill in for the air conditioner. I went, I thought it'd be a couple of grand. I went, the guy's looking for 37 grand.
Oh my God.
And she went, oh fuck, what you got to do? And I went, honestly, I'm shattered. I'm going to go to my bed and I'll deal with it tomorrow. And I remember speaking to the next day, and she went, how have you slept? And I was like, because you become institutionalised to go, do you know what, it'll all work itself out. And see in life, like, see that fear of panic and whatever, everything is always alright.
Everything is even always, because the thing is, and I've had the experiences where I've went for things and then it's not worked out due to lots of external things, but then there's lessons in that, and that puts you on the next bit and the next bit and the next bit. And
so let me ask you this. So when I arrived at you, I would say I was confident myself. I knew what I was doing in my business, but I would say personally I had a lot of work to do. And I think honestly, as I sit here 3 years later, I can wholeheartedly say I have achieved everything that I wanted to achieve, and it's probably time for us to go back to the vision boards and make some fresh ideas.
I remember we did the vision board with the Range Rover, the boat, the abs, the school.
Okay, the abs, for anybody that's watching, I don't have a six-pack yet. That's one thing that I still need to develop on. But I am training at the gym, and I'm aware of my health, and I don't tan the Crispies every day.
Okay, good start.
But I think ultimately what it comes down to is, like, now we can sit here and laugh about this, right? But for 3 years, it took a 3-year battle of me going, okay, I need to put myself back out there, I need to go to an audition. Chloe, at any given point, we didn't know what I was going to do. No. I could have literally been on Emmerdale, I could have been on Hollyoaks, and lo and behold...
And even that process, like,
it's not easy.
Making it sound like, oh, it was just that easy. It was like a lot of us really trying to, like, get our contact books and really understand.
We were phoning everybody, and it wasn't
the emails that we were getting.
I want people to be aware as well. This wasn't me like, I want to be on the telly. This is me thinking, like, hold on a minute here. I've started a theatre school because I'm an actor. I trained as an actor. I dedicated 4 years of my life to be an actor, and I've already jumped it, stopped it, and started focusing on other people. And I just felt a kind of a life of, well, do you know what? Like, okay, I've did good jobs like you, but I need to do something for myself, and I need to put myself back out there before I end up 50 and going, you know what? I should have went back into that. And that realisation found me at you.
Yeah.
And me and you worked together on the tools, and honestly, at any given point, I was like, Chloe, this week I might be, and honestly, if my agent is watching this, I think over the years I have probably auditioned for more shows than what bloody, I don't know, Jane McDonald's auditioned for, or Helen Flanagan, because, like, we talk about this, and Helen's one of my good friends. But I then started discovering that, like, hold on, actually, don't know if it's actually acting, like, I'm not enjoying this process. Lo and behold, fast forward, we sit here now, and I have just finished a season on The Apprentice, which is fantastic. It was fantastic, but it made me realise that, like, hold on a minute here, I don't need to be in River City to understand that, like, I need to put myself out there. I just needed that opportunity to walk away from the business, right? Because I needed to distance myself from it. I mean, I maybe took it to new extremes by distancing myself for 3 months with no phone, but all I needed was breathing space. That's all I needed. Like, I just needed...
It's going to get you into trouble.
No. Remember, some of that says... So basically what I do is, like, I know what it is. Basically what I decided to do was distance myself from the business to figure out what I loved about it and what I didn't, and because when I was here I was just obsessed with it. So that kind of leaves me on to you and your younger self. If anyone is watching this now, that you sit here as a successful entrepreneur, a super mum, everything else you do, an ex-professional dancer who still does it, is like, if you could give any advice to anyone younger listening to this, anyone that you think, if you would have watched this when you were younger and thought, I want to do this. We both come from a performing arts background. We've both worked in the creative industries. But if you, Chloe Ferns, sat here, the CEO, businesswoman and mum that you are, what advice would you give to your younger self?
So number one, your story doesn't define you. Number 2, education is key. Seek new information, seek new teachings, new wisdom, new insights. Number 3 is reparent yourself.
And number 4, don't be afraid to talk.
Yes, don't be afraid to fail, guys. Like,
I know.
I am failing every day, up and down.
Everybody's failing every day.
I'm like, 1 minute, honestly, and this is the thing about life, right? Like, we're not saying do this work and you're going to be sorted, right? Like, this is about learning how to manage.
And learning how to realise, like, okay, I've messed up there, but how do we fix it going forward?
And how can I adapt my strategy then? What is that there? Because all these things that we do, all these things that happen to us, all these conversations, all these people that hurt us, all of these people that cheat on us and do this and do that, they're only there to help us learn about ourselves. So if we are constantly in victim mentality...
But I think as well it's just about evolvement and realising that, like, listen, everybody here, and I just hope that everybody that is listening to this podcast and everybody that is engaging with this podcast is aware that every single guest I will be bringing on here, we are all on a development process together, and I just hope that by you, the listener, by you, the watcher, that we can all evolve together, that we can slowly develop. And do you know what, I'm not saying that we're here to change the world, because I think there's bigger problems there, but I just hope that if anyone can take one thing from this, it's that, do you know what, you are the creator of your own future. You're going to be the person that needs to go out and get there. And that's the one thing I would like to say. So.
And we are not our thoughts. Like, that's so
we are not our thoughts.
We are not our thoughts. We are not our environment. We are everything that we think and we do, like, we believe is the truth. And actually it's not.
I think if we were to sum this up as a finale from the prologue, as the CEO sat here of the Scottish CEO show, let's choose a favourite quote. You know I love a quote. So everybody knows I change my phone every single Monday to a new quote, and every single Monday I set an alarm. So if we were to wrap this up, and if we were to say choose one quote to sum up what you would like to educate the world to be. So me, Rhys Donnelly, sat here as the host and CEO of 2 businesses. I would probably say this week one is do one thing every single day that scares you.
Does that mean you're going to get in that tub?
No.
Yeah.
But I'm actually I'm going to an audition in about half an hour, so that'll scare me. And Chloe, let's just wrap that up. So if you were to tell me one thing, one quote that gets you through.
In life, we either win or we learn.
Yeah.
Like, really simple. There's no losing. It's either we win or we learn.
Great. Chloe, thank you so much for joining me. I have loved having you on. The amazing Chloe Ferns. If you want to find out
My
more...
name's Chloe McNiven, by the way. I'm married now.
Sorry, I forgot. Show us the ring. Get that on the camera. Let's see it. Okay, so the amazing Chloe Ferns, Chloe McNiven, CEO, Director of the Soul Hub, International Dancer. Thank you so much
I'm also an ultra runner now. Can you add that?
Sorry, yeah.
I'm really proud of that achievement. It's like a big deal for me at the moment.
Please don't let anyone forget that Chloe ran a marathon.
It's not a marathon.
Oh, sorry, it's an ultra marathon.
That is like 5 marathons. 5 marathons.
Great, listen.
Don't call it a marathon. Come on.
And all the work we do with Chloe, this is what she needs to change. No, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you to my amazing guests on the prologue. Thank you to my mum. Thank you to Amy and my final guest, Chloe. If you have enjoyed this, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening.